every season while Pep Guardiola is at Man City, I know this is going to frustrate some fans, but you're kind of just waiting for him to leave. And it is all about preparing yourself to be the best team when he does.
When you look at this Real Madrid team this season, maybe Mbappé doesn't play as the striker. Maybe Mbappé plays on the right and Rodrigo plays through the middle.
Or Vinicius.
Hello
and welcome back to Monday Vibes, everybody, where we round up the biggest transfer stories and results from the weekend just past. We are shooting on the Continental Club set.
Yes.
Which is a bit strange, I know, but it is nice to use the Continental Club set because Sunday Vibes going forward will in all likelihood be shot on the Monday Vibes set. For a bit of clarity, with me and Mikel being the only two permanent members of Football Daily, Sam and Joe are still about, but they are working on other projects. It doesn't really make sense to get them to traipse all the way over to central London each week. So we will be filming Sunday Vibes on the Monday Vibes set. I think most Monday Vibes episodes will probably come from this set, which probably makes sense. But Mikubs, enough of that chit-chat. How are you? How was your weekend?
Yeah, good, thanks, Dukes. Good, thanks. Yeah, I went to see Dear England, the Gareth Southgate play on Saturday, so that was really fun. I know you've seen it before. Really worth a watch. I don't know how long it's on for, but yeah, it is really worth a watch. Very impressive production, and yeah, like the acting, the performances are brilliant. Like the Gareth Southgate and Harry Kane in particular sound exactly
Voldemort's
like the
brother.
real thing. Voldemort's brother
Is Joseph Fiennes.
Of course, yeah. Was Voldemort
Ralph Fiennes? Ray Fiennes.
Ray Fiennes, yeah.
One of them's the explorer, one of them's the actor. I always get them mixed up.
Yeah. Right, because Ralph Fiennes is the actor I knew, and I didn't realise that his brother was an actor until the thing. But Voldemort's brother. I did also completely forgot that Ralph Fiennes was Voldemort.
Very good Voldemort as well.
Learn something new every day. That was great. Dukes, how about yourself?
It was good. Peaks and troughs. I had my friend's 30th surprise party, and it was a good old surprise.
Yeah.
Actually, we got him. Surprise.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
was he
big
shocked?
time. He was pretty shocked. And then Saturday was another shock. Well, not so much a shock, but Sunderland being destroyed really by Newcastle, which we'll be coming on to in due course. But it was a good weekend. But yes, as you'd have noticed, we haven't put out a lot of Monday Vibes episodes in the last few weeks. We've been sort of trying to work out what we can do with only two of us. Basically, what we're going to do going forward, hopefully, is an episode of Monday Vibes or some sort of review show on Monday, Sunday Vibes on Sunday, and then we are doing Snapchat content throughout the week. We're going to put out a few YouTube shorts as well, and of course, we'll be seen on Sky Sports News and other projects around Sky as well. So we are doing the best we possibly can with the resources available to us, but we really do appreciate your patience. But let's get into the biggest game of FA Cup Round 3. Yes. Arsenal 0, Liverpool 2, because this was a really interesting game, Cubs, I thought. Real swings of momentum, but Liverpool triumphant in the end.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it was a fixture that this FA Cup weekend needed. There weren't many upsets throughout the weekend. There weren't many like generally speaking, throughout my football watching life, the FA Cup third round weekend is one of the highlights of the year. I feel there's always a lot of really interesting stories to come out. And although Maidstone, I think shout out to Maidstone for beating Stevenage, National League South, Maidstone, League One, Stevenage, big upset there. On the same ground that we witnessed a few years ago, SC Dons win the Kent Cup or something, which is a great Football Daily memory. So that was probably the biggest kind of upset of the weekend. But aside from that, I felt like it didn't necessarily, the FA Cup didn't necessarily give us the magic of the cup that we've had, over the years. But nevertheless, Arsenal Liverpool, I think, all things considered, was a fixture that was needed, and a game that was needed as well. Like you say, Dukes, it was interesting. I don't think either team was really at their best, but I think it was an upset in the end. At the Emirates, I know Arsenal haven't been in great form, but I think on balance they were the better team here. 1.9 XG to Liverpool's 0.9.
Particularly in that first half.
First half, they were very much the better side. And then even in the second half, when Liverpool were coming back into it, I thought Martinelli was causing Trent Alexander-Arnold so many problems. And if that Arsenal front line could actually put away a chance, what is it, 1 goal from their last 61 shots? I think Arsenal do come away from this the victors, but Liverpool in those final 10 minutes, they hung on first of all, and then in those final 10 minutes came into their own once again, and that Kivior own goal proved the difference in the end. Dukes, what did you make of that second half performance from Liverpool, because we spoke about it. We spoke about their title credentials, didn't we, on Sunday Vibes yesterday? Like, do you think this is a sign of just how seriously this Liverpool team needs to be taken in the second half of the season?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I think it was a show of real grit and determination, because obviously the big headline was no Mo Salah, but Virgil van Dijk was also ill. Szoboszlai was out injured. They didn't have any fit left backs. They still didn't have Thiago. They still didn't have Bajcetic. So they are a little bit stretched all over the park, really. And to hang on in there, and it was really hanging on in there. Having said that, Alisson wasn't really forced into too many outstanding saves. No. There was probably that one from Ben White in the first half, which was probably the most he was tested, really. And then Odegaard hit the bar as well. But Reece Nelson really messing up. I thought, he did well to sort of get round the goalkeeper quite early doors. And then Havertz not really showing enough initiative, not really taking enough of the opportunity, really, in the first half. So there were moments for Arsenal, but it did feel like one of these have to go in, really, because this Liverpool side, even when they're not playing at their best, with Diaz and in particular Darwin Núñez on the left-hand side in the second half, they do really carry a threat, and they came back into it in the second half, and some big performances at the back as well. I thought Ibrahima Konate was an absolute colossus in this game. He has put in some big performances in the past. I think he played pretty well against United in December, and was pretty good at the Emirates against Arsenal as well. But the big one that always sticks out for me is I think his Champions League last 16 tie a few years ago against Inter Milan, and he was absolutely insanely good in that game. And it was kind of like that sort of performance again last night, or last afternoon, I should say. And Jarrell Quansah as well, I think, looks really assured next to him. Very calm for a guy of his age.
Do you think with the form that Jarrell Quansah has been in, do you think that eases the pressure on Liverpool to go out and assign a kind of temporary Matip replacement in January? Because he's very much a first team player at this point.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about it, throughout November, really in December, as soon as that Matip injury struck, that should be the area that Liverpool prioritise, because they haven't really signed a defender, I don't think, since Ibrahima Konate in 2021. And they are, an injury to Joe Gomez at the moment, who's doing an excellent job at left back, it must be said. Held his own against Bukayo Saka. Would be pretty detrimental to their title hopes right now, because they are stretched across the rest of their backline as well. But Jarrell Quansah, fair play. You've kind of come from nowhere at the start of this season, and really good performances in the Europa League, and now starting to do it on the bigger stage as well. But I think McCubs, the narrative really around Arsenal is going to be, they've created, I think, over 6 XG in their last 3 games, only scored 1 goal, over 60 shots, as you say. Does this mean they have to sign a striker this January? What are your thoughts?
Well, yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because I think all the noise coming from Arsenal is that they can't really afford a striker this January. I don't know whether Arsenal are going to be able to make any significant signings in the winter window. It feels like, the summer is when they're going to be doing their most of their business. But even then, it's slightly concerning. Let's not paint this as a crisis, by the way, for Arsenal, because they're still very much in a title race, but they're also very much in a top 4 race. They're only 1 point above Spurs. They're only 6 points above West Ham. So yes, it's probably going to be difficult to sign a striker this January, but they do need to secure Champions League football if they want to spend a decent amount in the summer. But I think we need to maybe 1 or 2 games more before passing too much judgment here. I think they can't finish their dinner at all at the moment. But Saka's on 9 goals this year. Odegaard and Jesus are then second to him on 7. I believe that's in all competitions, right? So in the next month, you could feasibly have 3 players in this Arsenal forward line on double figures for the season in all competitions, which is not terrible. It's not where they were at last year, but then even last year, they were reliant on Martin Odegaard scoring the most non-penalty goals of any midfielder in Premier League history last year in their title race. So this isn't something new for Arsenal. The centre forward position has been talked about a lot. Havertz. Has Havertz really given a great account of himself in that centre forward position since the Community Shield at Arsenal? Probably not. He's looked a lot better as that left-sided midfielder, playing that more kind of Xhaka role. I think, that lineup of, what was it, Reece Nelson, Havertz and Saka in this game was, not an ideal starting lineup by any means for Arsenal. So I think when you do have that full straight side, and it was good to see Martinelli as well, back on form in that second half too. I think Arsenal fans maybe are getting a little bit ahead of themselves, as you would if you're in a title race and you go, what is it, 3 games without a win.
Yeah.
So I think, it's probably not the time to panic about this, but it's still a bit concerning. Clearly there is a lack of confidence in the forward line, and I think particularly Saka, fluffed a couple of really good opportunities.
The sort of high one above him to his left.
And there was another one that he had put over the bar, didn't he? I think there are definitely reasons for concern in the long term about Arsenal's kind of goal scoring in the front line, but generally speaking, I wouldn't pass judgment too quickly. But having said that, if Arsenal do want to be challenging hard for titles year in, year out, then I think they do need a 20-goal season striker. I think, you don't necessarily need one, but that's only really if you're Man City. Even Liverpool over the last few years, even though goals have come from throughout that side, it has been Mo Salah scoring, consistently every single season. So, I think that is something that Arteta clearly needs to address, and I think he knows he does.
Yeah, absolutely. I think unless your wingers are scoring 30 plus in all competitions in a season, like Liverpool have with Salah in recent years, then you do need a more even spread of goals across the forward line. I totally agree with you. I think panic is the word that I would try and avoid this January. I don't see that massive upside of signing Ivan Toney, particularly Ivan Toney, who's coming off a 9-month ban, who will cost over £80 million, probably closer to £100 million, when he's 27 years old. And I don't think he makes you a title winner this season. I think you'd rather invest that in a younger, more closer to world-class striker this summer, surely. So I just wouldn't panic. And, this is every season while Pep Guardiola is at Man City. I know this is going to frustrate some fans, but you're kind of just waiting for him to leave. And it is all about preparing yourself to be the best team when he does, because you are the underdog every year he's still there. So I think signing Osimhen this summer is the way to go, or someone of that caliber, rather than Ivan Toney, who in 2 years' time will be 29. And, he was exceptional last year, but is he going to do that every year in the Premier League? We don't know. Sure. So we'll see. Guys, do you agree with myself and my Cubs that Arsenal should stay clear of panicking this January, or do you think that actually the situation that they're in requires urgent attention? Let us know in the comments below, and let's move on to Man City Huddersfield. My Cubs, this was 5-0 to Man City. This was a fairly straightforward performance, but I think the big talking point was really De Bruyne coming back.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, he came on in 57 minutes and had a decent impact on the game, didn't he? Set up Doku, who also came on after, having been out for a spell with injury. But I mean, given this was his first game since the opening game of the season, when he, of course, went off injured against Burnley, I think it was a good game to get to ease him back in, because he didn't look, just from kind of watching him in that second half, he's still De Bruyne, still pretty mobile, but did not look fully match fit. But massive boost. But at the same time, I think this game was evidence, and I know it's Huddersfield, but it is evidence of Phil Foden, who was the outstanding player in this game. When Phil Foden is on form, Man City don't actually necessarily need a De Bruyne. I think that was their problem in the kind of October-November period, was that there wasn't, say, a Foden or a Grealish on top of his game every single game. And it was just another example as well of City's depth, wasn't it? Someone like Oscar Bob, who looked really impressive in this game, forced that own goal in the second half. He had 3 shots himself. He created a chance. But like I say, Phil Foden, if we go into his numbers very quickly, 4 shots, created a chance, got those 2 goals, the 2 best goals of the game, in my opinion, as well. I think he's looks set for a really big second half of the season, and with Man City competing in the FA Cup and Champions League, as well as in the Premier League, I think he's going to be really important to their progress, especially if De Bruyne needs a good month to get back in, fully into the swing of things. But Dukes, what did you make of Man City in this game? What do you make of like what's coming up for them as well, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, they were absolutely clicking in this game. I thought that I think it was Foden's second goal with the Kovacic layoff was really, really nice, like a sort of vintage Man City goal. And as you say, Foden, I don't know, I think he kind of goes under the radar. I don't think he gets enough appreciation when he does stuff like that, because people are like, oh, he's playing for Man City, he should be that good. But he's a really pretty special player.
Yeah.
And people just think, oh, he wasn't as good as Saka last season. So, he's kind of been taken away from those top conversations, I think. But he's an excellent player. Rarely has more than one bad game consecutively. I think he's very good at getting back on form pretty quickly. But as we've sort of pointed out, Championship opposition, Huddersfield are not having a good season in the Championship. I think they've won 2 of their last 13 league games, one of which against Sunderland. Absolute classic. We cannot get over the line against the Championship bottom scrapers, and against top opposition, as this weekend showed as well, which we'll come on to. But yeah, Man City have now got a big game. They play Newcastle away on Saturday, 5:30. Newcastle's league form has obviously been pretty disastrous recently, but yeah, good performance against Sunderland from them this weekend. They beat City in the Carabao Cup earlier this season, but they've already played 2 games, and Man City won the home game in the league 1-0 at the Etihad as well. So all the games this year have been really, really tight, and that's an absolutely fascinating contest between them both. But great news to have De Bruyne back. Alvarez back on the score sheet as well. He's picked up form after a difficult start. And was it late November, early December? Alvarez was on that sort of barren run. Oscar Bob, as you say, looks really, really promising. So yeah, comprehensive, comfortable win for City. But let's talk about the game that was hyped probably as the tie of the round, at least in my head. Sunderland 0, Newcastle 3. I was very excited for this. We went in with a great recent record against them, but it's almost totally irrelevant, to be honest. I was kind of fishing all week because when we last played in April 2016, the fortunes of these two sides couldn't be any more different. And you could see the gap in quality on the pitch. You could see the gap even in physicality on the pitch. Like, their press was, I don't know whether it was amazing or whether we're just not used to that level of press. I mean, Newcastle are known for their pressing game, but they completely isolated Joe Bellingham. I thought Dan Neil was probably the only Sunderland player that really stood up and looked like sort of Premier League level. Dan Ballard had a really strange game in that for the majority of it, I thought he was pretty excellent, really. One of Sunderland's best players, but some big errors. Scoring an own goal, really unfortunate. He had to stick a leg out because Alexander Isak was about to tuck into an empty net, but he probably could have been sent off in the first half. And then he gives away a really foolish penalty late on as well, after Luke O'Nien slides in. One of a number of opportunities that Sunderland players tried to take to leave a big tackle in and actually just expose our backline entirely. Like, the first goal comes from Try Hume sliding into or trying to take down Anthony Gordon as well and completely missing. So Sunderland players a little bit naive, but yeah, I mean, McCubbs as an on-watcher, I don't even know whether you watched this game. I mean, Newcastle were pretty impressive, but it was pretty one-sided, at least for that first half.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, did Sunderland have one shot?
We didn't have a shot in the first half. Didn't have a shot in
the first half, and then in the second half, this is the thing. It's the FA Cup. and everything. Like, if if that deflected strike in the second half goes in, it was a great save in the end from Dubravka, sorry, and then that pot shot that hit the bar as well. Like, you never know. One of them goes in,
a bit of magic.
And suddenly, that last 10 minutes is quite tight. But yeah, like you say, I think Newcastle were just a class above. Like, Eddie Howe was never going to field a weak team for this game, even though it's the third round of the FA Cup against Championship opposition. It's the Tyne-Wear derby. Like, I think it was always going to be wishful thinking for Sunderland to get something out of this game, even though Newcastle are not the Newcastle of last season. Like, you've still got one of the best strikers in Europe up top. You've still got one of the best pressing systems in England to go up against.
Isak as well took his penalty really nicely as well. I don't know whether you noticed it, but someone did a breakdown of it on Twitter afterwards, because I think they were looking for something to say about this game, really. But anyway, his whole body language suggested he was going to go right, and then he just whips it into the bottom left. It was really, really nice strike. But yeah, I mean, I'm not too embarrassed by it. I thought the only way we could really lose was by conceding more than 5. There is such a gap in quality between the teams. And yeah, we didn't really leave with too many positives. I think there was a 15-minute spell after we conceded that shocking second by Ekwa getting tackled at the edge of the box. One of 9 tackles that Miguel Almiron put in.
Crazy.
Like, what are you supposed to do when the right wing is putting 9 tackles in? Like, that just sums up Newcastle. They worked so hard, and they were deserved winners. But yeah, as I say, Newcastle play Man City next, and they've got Villa before the end of January. There's not actually that many Prem fixtures before the end of the month. They've only got 2 games left. Sunderland have got a really difficult run. They've got Ipswich away this weekend, then Hull. So yeah, their Championship playoff hopes. You just really hope that this doesn't demoralise them too much. But McCubs, let's head around Europe briefly. Let's touch on Serie A before we get into some hot transfer news, so don't go anywhere for that. But Serie A drama was at an all-time high. FA Cup might not have delivered, but the Serie A this weekend. Whoa.
Oh yeah, absolutely brilliant. I mean, obviously the title race is where it's at in Serie A at the moment. Inter and Juve, I think since September now, have pretty much identical records. They've both played 13, won 10, drawn 3, lost 0. They've only conceded 6 goals in that time each. Inter have the much better attacking record, but nevertheless, I mean, I just think Allegri and Juve, props to them for keeping up with what is a relentless Inter side, despite not having, the kind of resources that Simone Inzaghi has at San Siro. But yeah, I mean, Inter were up first this weekend against Verona, and it took a David Fratesi rebound in the 96th minute, was it? Or
I think it was 93rd, maybe.
Yeah. But either way, I think it was the last minute of stoppage time. That followed up from a Lautaro Martinez opener. But I mean, those last few minutes were pretty amazing. The Verona goal was really under assault. I think it was Alessandro Bastoni who initially with that left-footed volley in the build-up to Fratesi's goal came bouncing off the bar. That would have been one of the goals of the season. But yeah, they really had to scrape hard. In the
Verona missed a penalty in the last minute as well.
Yeah, so I mean, crazy stuff. But yeah, I mean, Inter roll on, and Lautaro Martinez is just in such good form. Well, I say he's in good form. Actually, he went 2 games without a goal before this match.
Drought.
But it is a drought by his standards. It's only the second time that's happened this season. He's 7 clear on 16 goals at the top of the Serie A scoring chart, with Olivier Giroud and Domenico Berardi behind him. But yeah, I mean, this was a must-game win for Inter because they drew with Genoa on the 29th of December, 1-1. So, Juve could have, were coming right back into it after that result. But then, Juve were up against Salernitana on Sunday. They beat them 6-1 in the Coppa Italia just before Christmas as well. So would have been pretty confident going into it, but had to come down from 1-0 down. They were 1-0 down at half-time. Samuel Illing Jr. getting his first goal of the season, the young Englishman.
Nice strike,
so that was
as
great.
well.
Yeah, really, really good strike.
Power.
An absolute fluke of an assist from Dusan Vlahovic as well. Just kind of going through his legs pretty much. But yeah, I mean, but again, I think Allegri proved once again why he is still, probably one of the best tacticians in the Italian game still, if not in European football. They were 1-0 down at half-time. They were creating almost nothing chance-wise. I think it was 0.28 XG they built up at half-time. And he brought on Illing Jr. for Filip Kostic, who has, generally speaking, held down that left-hand side all season and has been one of Juve's key players over the last 18 months. Brought on Rogani for Gatti, and they instantly looked like a much better side. They instantly looked a lot more dangerous. Illing Jr. getting his first goal of the season. Vlahovic then completing the comeback with a stoppage time header from a Danilo cross. He's now got 2 in his last 3 games. But yeah, with a Juve side which has a lot of young academy players in it. Has not got the most consistent quality from front to back. For them to be going up against Inter this season as they are is really, really impressive. I still look back Inter to win the league, but Juve are giving a really good fist of it. And by the time they play each other on the 4th of February, Juve will have actually played a game more than them.
Okay.
And they have Sassuolo, Lecce and Empoli coming up. Inter have Monza and then Fiorentina before that Juve game. Juve could be top of the league by the time they meet on the 4th of February, which could add a really interesting dynamic into that fixture. But yes, like you say, Dukes, let's finish off with some of the transfer news because Mbappé to Real Madrid could be on once again after it was supposedly off just yesterday.
Yes.
Obviously, it's the most boring transfer saga in history at this point.
I had hair when this was first mentioned. I had hair.
You had
I had a lot of
hair.
hair.
Yeah.
I had a lot of hair. I had a mop, a sort of thinning mop when this was first mentioned. Yes, it is supposedly back on. Yes, it is being talked about for, my whole adult life, seemingly. But supposedly they've come to some sort of agreement. There were doubts reported in The Athletic about whether Real Madrid wanted to break their wage structure, about whether they saw him as the right tactical fit. Because it is an interesting one. You know, he will probably, if he does sign for Real Madrid, be played as a striker, which he was complaining about last year at PSG. Maybe once you get your dream move to Real Madrid and you see Vinicius Jr., you know, maybe you just play as a striker for Real Madrid and suck it up, as it were. But yes, it has been reported by The Times on Sunday afternoon that he rejected Real Madrid and was now keen on a move to the Premier League, but that looks pretty unlikely. Attention is now firmly turned to pre-contract negotiations with Real Madrid, supposedly. Apparently they set a deadline of the middle of January. According to these reports, it might be done by the middle of January. I don't want to say that this is going to happen for sure. I have absolutely no idea. There's been so many twists and turns in the past. It looked like it was going to be done in 2022. It wasn't. He rejected them at the last minute. Real Madrid, I advise you to proceed with caution, because he has changed his mind more times than I've had hot dinners. This has really become from a French journalist, though, McCubbs, hasn't it? Who's given the most credence to this.
Yeah, Santiago at Foot Mercato, who is, he's pretty well respected, reported that this was basically signed and sealed a few days ago, so last week.
Put his reputation on the line.
Mbappe, did speak to Nasser Al-Khelaifi, I think, middle of last week as well. And the sounds coming out from that was that Mbappe is just focused on this season. Nothing too dramatic there. So again, believe it when we see it, I think, with this. But I think Real Madrid is still his most likely destination. That there was that noise about Real Madrid not wanting to, having given up on him a bit and not really wanting a character like that in what is a young burgeoning side at the Bernabeu. But it's Florentino Perez, and if Mbappe is available, then Florentino Perez will absolutely go for him. I can guarantee that. I couldn't think of anything less Flo Perez than rejecting the chance to sign Kylian Mbappe. I just don't think it happens. So yes, and there was talk about Liverpool as well, because Mbappe did have talks with them as well. I think back in 2022.
He's always admired
before.
them, I think.
And obviously working under Klopp's great, but it still feels like Real Madrid. And on the striker thing as well, when you look at this Real Madrid team this season, maybe Mbappe doesn't play as the striker. Maybe Mbappe plays on the right and Rodrigo plays through the middle,
or Vinicius,
or who knows?
It's very
Endrick,
fluid,
maybe,
isn't it?
Or who knows? Maybe Bellingham just permanently becomes a false nine. But I think there is possibilities there for Mbappe positionally at Real Madrid. I think Ancelotti has shown that this forward line can adapt.
Hossily crying into his breakfast this morning.
I know. Yeah.
No, he's had a great year.
Dream scuppered.
He's had a great year.
But and then finally, let's talk about Timo Werner to Spurs, Dukes, because it looks like this is all but done. I think Fabrizio Romano gave it the here we go last week, didn't he? According to Sky Germany, full agreement's been made. Spurs are going to cover his salary for the rest of the season, which I believe is €5 million. Not had the best season.
No.
In at Leipzig, obviously there's been injury problems. He's only scored twice. Albeit he's barely getting on the pitch, so 2 goals is not necessarily to be sniffed at that much. But obviously has history in London already with Chelsea. What do you make of this? Because I feel like I'm quietly optimistic about this. Ange Postecoglou, has worked some wonders with players this season, but what do you think?
I'm extremely optimistic. It's a 6-month loan deal with an option to buy for £15 million. At a time where Son has gone to the Asian Games, Solomon, or the Asian Cup, I should say. Solomon is out injured. Perisic is missing the entire season. So they do need strength and depth on the left-hand side. And he's also, Richarlison's their only out-and-out senior number 9, I think. I mean, you can play Son down the middle, but I think Dane Scarlett is their backup 9.
Yeah, he's back, isn't he?
He's back. But, I mean, Timo Werner's just a different level to Dane Scarlett. And look, he didn't play particularly well this season, but I think he's played 206 minutes, which I think is 18th in Leipzig's squad. the fact that Lois Openda has hit the ground running in the way he has there has just meant that he's just hoovered up most of the majority of minutes. I mean, even Benjamin Sesko, who's been pretty much phenomenal whenever he's played, is getting, bits and bits at the end of games, really. So I don't think it's a reflection of, a fading footballer to not play in this Leipzig side. I think he's just been, not in his best form, and there's been a striker that's in his best moment. So it's not really been a huge surprise. I think his time at Chelsea, he was slightly harshly treated. I think there was obviously some really big notable misses, some really poor runs, but always worked really hard for the side. I think that versatility is quite crucial. And when James Maddison comes back, I can see him threading a lot of balls through to Timo Werner and it being quite an effective partnership. And I just don't really see how they can lose from this deal. It's not particularly high on wages. There's no obligation to buy. And they need the strength and depth at the moment. Will he end up signing for £15 million? Let's wait and see. But, Chelsea last year spent 11 million euros to sign João Felix for 6 months. This is half the fee. And Timo Werner's, probably as ready to make a difference for Spurs. So I'm hot on it.
Yeah, I mean, it's much more of a position in need, wasn't it, than what Chelsea needed from João Felix last year. I agree, Dukes. And when you look at his Chelsea numbers, actually, he was averaging a goal or an assist every other game. Which, considering he missed a lot of glaring chances, it could have been a lot more. It could have been a lot more in terms of his ability to get on the end of chances, get himself in those positions. He didn't do an awful lot wrong, but it didn't work out. He just wasn't consistent enough in the end. But under a manager who has already transformed a lot of things at that club, I think I would be quite optimistic as a Spurs fan, to be fair. Obviously, former Chelsea and everything.
That's quite nice for them as well.
And is a bit of a confidence player, but he's joining a happy camp, joining a Spurs side which have got over a slump and are back challenging for those top 4 positions. So I'm pretty keen on it as well.
Also, a great opportunity for him to get back into Nagelsmann's thoughts for the Euros. A home Euros tournament. He's worked really well under Nagelsmann in the past at Leipzig. Great opportunity for a hungry Timo Werner to prove his doubters wrong that exist in England, and there are plenty of them. And as you say, join a side that are upwardly mobile. So I'm a fan, as is my Cubs. But what do you guys think, crucially? Let us know in the comments down below. And that's all we've got time for on Monday Vibes for this week. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Sorry it took us a while to get it back to your screens, but hopefully it'll be a regular thing from every Monday from now on. If you enjoyed it, let us know your thoughts. Like and subscribe, and we'll catch you later in the week. Bye.